meeting for August 18. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are working on the lands of traditionally occupied by the Indigenous peoples. Indigenous people continue to care for this land and continue to shape our township. We show our respect and will continually honor the treaties that were signed as we consider our decisions and actions. Also, I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge one of the members of our planning team who will soon be no longer with us.
That was a little too ominous, but what do you know that I don't know? It's like,
Sorry to hear that, Dave.
yes.
David Smith, who is our manager of planning, has been with us now for almost 2 years. And during that period of time, David has made a tremendous contribution to us here at the Township of Georgian Bay. For those that have been around for a while, David started with us where we had a pretty significant backlog of work to be accomplished. And due to the fact that Dave was staying here full-time Monday to Friday, took advantage of all of that time and made a significant contribution in clearing the backlog that we had. And David, we appreciate that very much. You certainly are leaving us in a much better position than when you started. David was also very much involved in training, training both of the people on the Committee of Adjustment due to some changes that were made by provincial legislation, and also working very closely with our members of council to make sure that they had all of the up-to-date information they needed. So, David, I understand you're going back to Grey Bruce, and
Yes.
we wish you all the best and certainly appreciate your contribution while you're here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank
Members, thank you for your support.
Okay.
Thank you. And of course, to the staff for their support and all the hard work that they've done in order to get us to where you're at today. So thank you.
This morning, there's a public meeting scheduled for 5 consent applications and 10 minor variance applications. I'll briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for the meeting. First, the Secretary Treasurer will advise the committee as to when, how, and to whom notice of each of the hearings was circulated for the applications being considered. Next, each of the applications will be considered separately. Planning staff will advise the purpose and effect of the applications and provide any other information that is relevant. The Secretary Treasurer will summarize all correspondence on file, and from there the applicant may make a brief presentation if they so choose. And the public will have an opportunity to speak to the applications being considered. After the public forum, the committee will then deliberate on the proposed applications and consider a motion to pass, defeat, or defer the decision of the applications. The consent applications being considered this morning are B23-23 and B23-24 for 155 Lone Pine Road. B23, 25, 26, and 27 for 434 South Bay Road. The minor variance applications being considered this morning are A23-20 for 116 Heath Valley Trail, A23-22 for 51 Kings Farm Road, A23-24 for 44 Saunders Drive, A23-27 for 60 Heath Valley Road, A23-28 for 664 Go Home Lake Shore, A23-29 for 708 Kings Farm Road, A23-30 for 2 Island 1560, A23-31 for 348 Musquash River Shore, A23-32 for 379 Haskets Drive, and A23-33 for 654 Bayview Road. And before we begin, I would ask members of the committee, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest?
I'm thinking, but there are no names attached to the application, but I'm pretty sure the B, so consent of application B 23-25, 23-26, and 27. I will have a conflict on.
Thank you. And we get the book to Mr. Jarvis. He can record that. Okay, and the resolutions are attached. Yes, thank you. Okay, I have a resolution moved by member Jarvis, seconded by member Rivet. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves the minutes of July 14, 2023 as circulated. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The motion is carried. I have another resolution moved by member Matthews, seconded by member Smith. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment adopts the agenda dated August 18, 2023. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And that motion is carried. Madam Secretary.
Notice of each of the applications was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, 500 meters, or 800 meters, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the application. The notices were sent at least 20 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and a key map showing the location of the property. Other relevant information may have also been provided. These circulations were provided in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act 1990.
Thank you very much. First application is the consent application. 155.
Through the chair, the purpose of the applications is to sever 2 lots from the subject property, which will result in 3 lots having frontage on Lone Pine Road. Lot 1 to be severed will have an area of 9,875 square meters and a frontage of 80.29 meters. Lot 2 to be severed will have an area of 8,546 square meters with a frontage of 70.53 meters. Lot 3 to be retained will have an area of 21,093 square meters and a frontage of 131.57 meters. The subject property has an area of 3.95 hectares and a frontage of 282.3 meters. The lands are vacant, heavily forested, and abut Highway 400. The subject lands are designated urban center within the district's official plan and are partially located within Stratum 2 deer wintering area. The lands also have high to very high archaeological potential. On August 14th, staff received a Stage 1 archaeological assessment prepared by a licensed archaeologist who has recommended that a Stage 2 archaeological assessment be conducted as a result of their findings. As such, staff have revised the condition of approval included in my report to specifically state that a Stage 2 archaeological assessment is required. Within the township's official plan, the lands are located in the urban center of Port Severn and designated commercial within the special policy area of business. The lands are zoned highway commercial exception 11, which requires a minimum lot frontage of 60 meters and a minimum area of 4,000 square meters. The proposed lots comply with the minimum requirements. Hydro One Networks has no objection to the proposed severance, provided their easement rights are protected and maintained, and the District of Muskoka has no objection. Staff are recommending approval of the consent application subject to conditions. Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
One letter was received from Hydro One stating they have no objection in principle to the proposed severance, provided Hydro One Networks Inc. easements rights are protected and maintained. And one letter was received from the District of Muskoka stating they would not be opposed to the approval, provided that Committee of Adjustment is satisfied that the proposed lots are compatible with Highway 400.
Thank you. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to address committee? Seeing no one. Okay. They may be present online. Okay, I see Mr. Luck. Is there anything you wish to add to what the planner has presented?
Nothing to add. I just want to thank the committee for accepting conditional. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, I'll close the public session of the application and bring the matter before the committee for any questions or comments. And does anyone have any? All right, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by member Jarvis, seconded by member Fredco. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby grants provisional approval to consent application B23-23 and B23-24 for the creation of 2 new lots subject to the following conditions. That the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. That a reference plan be completed and a digital copy and a hard copy be filed with the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment, or an exemption from the reference plan be received by the registrar. A draft copy of the reference plan shall be provided to the Secretary Treasurer for review and approval prior to registration of the survey. And that pursuant to section 53, subsection 42 of the Planning Act, the certificate of consent be affixed to the deed within 2 years of giving the notice of decision. Note that section 5343 of the Planning Act requires that the transaction approved by the consent be carried out within 2 years of the issuance of the certificate. And that a stage 2 archaeological assessment be completed by an archaeologist licensed in the province of Ontario and confirmed by the appropriate ministry to have been accepted into the Ontario Public Register of Archaeological Reports, and that the recommendation of the archaeological report assessment, if any, have been implemented to the satisfaction of the township. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried. Our next application is B23-25, 26, and 27 for 434 South Bay Road. To the planner, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. The applications before you this morning are for consent, and they were received by the township on June the 6th, following the adoption of official plan amendment number 20 and zoning bylaw amendment dated June 6, 2023. The official plan amendment has recently just been approved by the District of Muskoka for consideration. The OPA and ZBA were presented to council and approved with the intent of moving forward with the creation of 3 new residential parcels and 1 retained parcel. Official plan amendment number 20 was to amend the Township of Georgian Bay official plan by adding a new subsection, being section G16, rural special policy area, which permits a minimum lot frontage of 53 meters for the lands legally described as part of lot 30, concession 10, the former Township of Baxter, Township of Georgian Bay, District of Muskoka, and known municipally as 434 South Bay Road, as well as the lands amending the rural designation to the rural designation exception. The zoning bylaw amendment, which amended the zoning symbols that apply to this property, have been changed from rural to rural exception 11 and environmental protection 2, as well as adding additional provisions to section 15.4, table 15.3 of the zoning bylaw under the rural exceptions. These provisions do include a minimum lot area of 2.09 hectares and a minimum lot frontage of 53 meters. I'm just going to also share the layout for these lots. The applicant is currently working with the District of Muskoka to obtain approval and entrance permits to the 3 new parcels and the retained lot. Correspondence was received from the District of Muskoka on August the 4th, 2023, and they are not opposed to the approval of the above noted application, provided that there are additional conditions of approval that they would like the committee to consider, which I have amended in the actual decision as opposed to just what was written in the report. So these additional conditions are to be added. The applicant to obtain written confirmation from the District of Muskoka that an entrance permit can be issued for the proposed severed lots for access onto the district road. A 3-meter or a 10-foot road widening across the frontage of the severed and retained lots be dedicated to the district municipality of Muskoka for road widening purposes. An agreement with the District Municipality of Muskoka pursuant to Section 5126 of the Planning Act as amended, respecting the location of wells in relation to the Muskoka Road, and also the lands being rezoned for their intended use, which they have been. Staff are recommending approval of the creation of these 3 lots, subject to all conditions that were noted in the staff report, as well as the additional conditions recommended by the district.
One letter stating no comments or concern was received from Hydro One, and 1 letter was received from the District of Muskoka outlining conditions that Ms. McGabe just outlined.
Thank you. I noticed we have the applicant and the applicant agent on Zoom. Is there anything you wish to add to the planner's comments?
I'd just like to thank everybody for their time and effort with this, especially Deb. You did a great job, as well as Victoria, of course, and open to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Boyd. I should have asked you to identify yourself.
I'm sorry, I should have known better. John White. I'm the owner applicant of lot 434 South Bay Road.
Thank you. Ms. Lemieux, is there anything you wish to add?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. Chair, if you are okay with it, I do have a presentation prepared. Deb provided a great overview, but there was just some other images that I would like to share to the committee and members of the public, if that's okay.
Yeah, could I ask you to identify yourself for the record, please?
Oh, sorry. Victoria Lemieux, Senior Planner with Morgan Planning and Development. I'm the agent on behalf of the owner, John White.
Thank you.
Thank you. So hopefully everyone can see my screen now. Again, thank you very much for giving me a couple of minutes to provide some additional information here for committee's consideration. Again, for members of the public, my name is Victoria Lemieux. I'm here on behalf of the owner of the subject property at 434 South Bay Road. Staff provided an overview of the subject location. Of course, I'm sure members of the committee are familiar with this area just east of the Hunting Harbor community. So the property right now, committee, is vacant of any buildings or structures. This process has been, I think we've hit the 3-year mark. John will probably nod his head. It's been a very long process that we've been going through with township staff and with district staff as well. So we're really excited to finally be here this morning to hopefully obtain some conditional approvals here to proceed with lot creation. So the surrounding lands are a mixture of shoreline residential, shoreline commercial, rural residential lands, and of course, Georgian Bay itself. Here's an aerial image, committee, of the subject property. Again, the surrounding lands, we have Birch Acres Drive, Harmony Road, some shoreline residential surrounding the property, marina facility to the east, and of course, surrounded by other rural lands. As staff mentioned, we previously went to Township Council for both an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment in order to essentially allow us to be here today and finally ask for these conditional consent approval processes. And I just wanted to denote to committee the areas here on the right side of your screen in the dark gray. Those are the additional environmental protection areas that we included in our zoning bylaw amendment. So just to clarify, no existing EP zoning was removed. We actually added through that process. So again, and I appreciate staff's overview of the process thus far. Just wanted to reiterate to members of the public and committee that these applications were supported by a hydrogeological report, an environmental impact study that did go through the peer review process with the township's environmental consultant, and of course, a planning justification report from our office. I won't go into detail of the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment as staff provided a general overview, but those applications essentially allowed us to be here today, again, as I mentioned. So we did also put this sketch together for committee's consideration, just for a better understanding of really how large these lots will still provide for the community. As you can see, these pink dotted outlines are actually the minimum zoning standards for the rural zone. So as you can see, very large lots, the setbacks are more than enough to maintain In addition to staff's comments, the additional road widening requirement that the district has requested, as you can see, both the applicant and myself have no concerns with that additional requirement, as there is a substantial amount of space to work with there. And just for visual purposes, of course, these are by no means final building or septic locations. However, very evident that these footprints that would accommodate approximately a 2,500 square foot minimum floor plate, as you can see, look pretty small on these lots, just again, showcasing how large these lots still will be. Here is the zoning matrix that would apply to the subject properties and the lot creation. Again, just reiterating to committee, all minimum setbacks, lot coverage, landscape open space, all of those items, we are confident that all of the proposed built form in the future will be able to conform to those zoning requirements. Here's a view of the subject property from Birch Acres, showing the property on the south side of South Bay Road. Here, the property is on the left side of the photo of South Bay Road, with Georgian Bay further beyond the trees on the right side here. Here, we're looking to the north of the subject property, going towards Birch Acres. And then here, the subject property is on the right side. Again, just for some visual reminder for committee of where on South Bay Road we are. It really is that curve right around the marina area. So in summary, committee, it's our opinion that the applications are consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the provincial policy statement. Through the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment process, we are confident that these applications conform to the intent and purpose of both the township and district official plans. This lot creation was recently supported by Township Council through those approvals that we obtained. And again, supported by hydrogeological and environmental impact studies to ensure no negative impacts resulting from the development, as well as that the properties can be serviced appropriately. Wanted to reiterate that the owner has already obtained conditional entrance permits for some locations that we already required. We're just in that final permit process to obtain those permits. And of course, as committee is aware, we can't obtain final entrance permits until we have the conditional approval from the committee. So we do anticipate no issues on obtaining those and fulfilling that condition. The proposed lot fabric does still create large rural residential lots to complement the surrounding land uses. As committee knows, this property is located in close proximity to the downtown Honey Harbor area, as well as located less than 5 minutes from Highway 400. We feel confident that the township will benefit from this lot creation by providing additional permanent residential housing opportunities in the area, and will economically benefit from a tax revenue perspective. So thank you very much for allowing me to make some additional comments, and both myself and John are here for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Lemieux. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on this application? And I understand we have none online. Okay, seeing that, I will bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And are there any questions? Okay, one from member Rivet.
I just had one question through you to the staff. I just noted the locations of the wells are dated like from 89 and 93. Does that take into account the 10-meter road allowance from the district, and does that impact the location of those wells?
I'm sorry, are you referring to new wells or existing wells?
The one, well, there's pictures of the wells that were located, I think that are included in the package.
Okay, Victoria, is there any way you could bring that severance sketch back up for me so I can just see? Thank you.
I'm just assumed, not really mentioned about the date. There they are. The water well records. Yeah, they dated from 89 and 93. So does that I just want to know, does that have any impact? Are they impacted by the district requirement of the 10 meters is all I wanted to know.
As the well records through you, Mr. Chair, as the well records are you know, updated periodically. I'm sure when it comes to the actual 0.3 meter widening that the district is recommend or requiring, I mean, they would definitely look into the wells prior to doing that, as also the surveyor that would be doing the reference plan.
Thank you. That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further questions. I will read the resolutions. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby, and I should say this is moved by Member Matthews and seconded by Member Ribbit. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby grants provisional approval to consent application B23-25, 26, and 27 for the severance of lot A, B, and C as shown on Schedule A attached to this decision and subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. Two, that this decision applies only to the lot as indicated on Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. The lot shall subsequently conform with Schedule A. Three, that a reference plan be completed and a digital copy and hard copy be filed with the Township Planning Department, or an exemption from the reference plan be received from the registrar. Four, that pursuant to Section 53-42 of the Planning Act, a certificate of consent be affixed to the deed within 2 years of giving of the notice of decision. Notice Section 53-43 of the Planning Act requires that the transaction approved by this consent must be carried out within 2 years of the issuance of the certificate. 5, that the clerk of the township provide written confirmation that an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment are in force and effect to designate and rezone portions of the subject lands to recognize the recommendations of the scoped environmental impact study prepared by Mikowski Nielsen Associates Limited, dated April 21, 2022, as amended. And 6, that the owner pay 5% in lieu of parkland dedication for the severed lands in accordance with Section 51-1 of the Planning Act and the Township of Georgian Bay Bylaw 88-74. The township shall retain an appraiser at the owner's expense to prepare the appraisal. 7, that the owner enter into an agreement with the township if deemed necessary by the Township Planning Department in accordance with Section 51-26 of the Planning Act to implement the recommendations of the site evaluation report and scoped environmental impact study prepared by Mikowski Nielsen Association Limited, dated April 21, 2022, as amended, the peer review and the peer review response. And 8, that the owner enter an agreement with the District of Muskoka if deemed necessary by the district to satisfy all the requirements, financial or otherwise, of the district, which may include but shall not be limited to the locations of water wells, provisions of roads, installation of services, facilities, drainage, and the timing and payment of development charge. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Our first minor variance application is A23-20 for 116 Heath Valley Trail. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a detached garage in the rear yard with a reduced side and rear yard setback. The detached garage will be located 2 meters from the nearest side lot line and 3 meters from the rear lot line, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a minimum setback of 5 meters from the side lot line and 4 meters from the rear lot line. The detached garage is 7.32 meters by 9.75 meters with 2 bays and a building height of 4.5 meters. The subject property has an area of 3,600 square meters and approximately 40 meters of frontage onto Little Lake. The property is currently developed with a detached dwelling surrounded by mature trees and a dock located on the shoreline. The rear yard abuts Heath Valley Trail and is heavily treed. The lands are designated waterfront within the District of Muskoka and Township official plans and are zoned shoreline residential type 1 within the zoning bylaw. A site visit was conducted on July 4th. Staff are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has there been correspondence in this application?
6 letters of support were received from Cope Smith and Janine Couture, Catherine Lane, Nicole and Robert Carswell, William and Lillian Ashby, Stephen Rossi, and Ken McDonald.
Thank you. Is the applicant present and do they wish to add anything to the comments of the planner?
Good morning, committee. My name is Victoria. I'm here on behalf of Flow Drawings and Designing, 3 Violet Drive, Port Severn. I'm here acting as the agent for the property owners, Michael, Giebat, and Darlene.
Is the microphone?
I have a
Oh,
cold,
okay.
I apologize.
Didn't seem like- Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just here on behalf of the property owners, Michael and Darlene Giebat, who are behind me. I don't really have much to add for this one. We played with the positioning of this garage, but the neighboring property to the left, Mr. Ashby, who had submitted a letter of support when his dwelling was built, it was pushed too far to the one side. So when they had to redevelop, or I guess like realign the side lot line. And that's kind of what's restricted the development to the rear of the Giebat's property. And that's kind of what we're working with. We did play with the other side of their driveway, but there's more trees and the hydro and stuff like that. So I will also note that when I was there early in the spring, it has been a very wet season and there wasn't as much brush in this area. I do believe that's changed a little bit now, but I think it's all newer brush. So that's it. So if you have any questions, I'm here, and so are the property owners.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that wishes to add comment to this application? Okay, no one online. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public session portion of the application and bring the matter before the committee for any questions or comments. And do we have it? Member Jarvis?
I know you missed me. Is there a minimum lot size requirement in this area?
Sorry, through the chair, could you repeat that, please?
What's the minimum lot size requirement in the area? Is it 4,000 square? Is it 4,000 square meters?
Through the chair, I'm just going to look into that.
So not lot, sorry, what is the minimum lot size? Not coverage, but lot size.
Are you asking what the minimum size is if you're creating a new lot?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, sorry, it's out of curiosity, and if you just, if I could just ask you indulgence for a moment, because I do have a further question as follow to this.
Through the chair, the minimum lot size in the shoreline residential type 1 zone is 4,000 square meters.
Okay, so then we get to the lot coverage. Obviously, lot coverage applies to the 4,000 minimum lot size. Is there a anything further in our bylaws that indicate what the lot coverage would be for lots that are less than 4,000 square meters? In other words, the lot coverage indicated here obviously is within the guidelines provided by our bylaws based on 4,000 square meter lot. This is not a 4,000 square meter lot.
Through the chair, this is an existing lot of record. These zone provisions in the SR1 zone table do apply.
So it's
regardless of the lot size.
then, right? I mean, it's illegal. It's legal non-conforming. Have I got that correct? In view of the fact that the lot's too small.
Through the chair, the lot does have a legal non-complying size.
Yeah, okay,
That's
that's
the
fine.
question.
Yeah, I know. So we can establish that. That's fine. But I'm just, if there's nothing there, that's fine. But I just thought, I'm just curious over the fact that under normal circumstances, it would be a 4,000 square foot lot would be minimum size. And based on that, we allow 10% GFA. This building and garage presumably meet the requirements for, there, it's less than 10% even in the size of the lot as it currently stands, but we don't have any guidelines for lots that are less than 4,000 square meters, correct?
I think, Member Jarvis, if I made the lot was created before the.
Well, I
current-
understand that, but it's just, I think a note that I want to put away for later.
Right.
Is that lots that are smaller than 4,000, even though, yes, created before, I understand that.
Right.
That we should have some sort of guidelines there, but that's
So,
okay.
and the answer is we do have guidelines. So creating a lot today in the SR1 zone requires 4.
Yep.
As you point out, we have lots smaller than that. So if you have 1,000 square foot lot, 1,000 square meter lot, whatever it is, sorry, it is,
Square meter.
then
yeah.
you're allowed 10%. Everybody's allowed 10%. So if you have the smaller the lot, the
Okay.
less size building you get, bigger. If you have an 8,000 square foot lot in the SR1 zone, you're 10% of the 8,000.
Okay, so still
So
the 10%
number-
still applies, okay.
Across the board, right? So just smaller buildings or less building, or it's all 10% or whatever it is across the board, regardless of the size of lot.
Thank you, I appreciate the clarity, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by Member Matthews, seconded by Member Schmidt. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves minor variance application A23-20 for the construction of a detached garage and subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And that this decision applies only to the detached garage as indicated in Schedule A attached to and forming part of the decision. Any other variances that may apply to the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. And that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for the development. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried. Our next application is A23-22 for 51 Kings Farm Road. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a 2-story detached garage, approximately 14 meters by 18 meters in size, with an increased building height of 7.4 meters and an increased ground floor area of 267.6 square meters. The detached garage will have 4 bays, 2 man doors, windows, a powder room, and a storage space with balcony on the 2nd story. The subject property has an area of 3.62 hectares and is characterized by dense forest, granite rock, and contains a portion of Little Go Home Bay wetland. The property is to be developed with a detached dwelling. The rear lot line is shared with Crown Land, and the remainder of the semicircle shaped lot fabric is encompassed by Kings Farm Road and White Falls Road. The lands are designated rural within the district and township official plans and are zoned rural and environmental protection provincially significant wetland within the township zoning bylaw. An erosion and sediment control plan has been prepared to ensure the protection of the provincially significant wetland, which is located over 70 meters from the proposed detached garage. The measures outlined in the report and illustrated on the associated plan are to be implemented as a condition of approval. A site visit was conducted on July 4th, and staff are recommending approval because the proposal is consistent with the PPS and meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. Thank you.
Two letters of no objection were received from Barbara Sinclair and Lynn Sinclair.
Good morning. My name is Ivan Averhoff. I am the applicant, and I do believe my agent, Deanna, is present via Zoom. I do not believe she has anything to add. No.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ivan, sorry. Good morning, committee members and staff. My name is Diana Fiore and I am agent through Ouellette and Associates at 1 County Road 6 South in Tiny, present on behalf of property owner Ivan Averhoff. Thank you to Shania for preparing the staff report. As the application is recommended for approval, I would like to reiterate that the increase in height allows for greater headroom on the main level, which allows for storage items of such as taller recreational vehicles. The headroom in the storage area on the second level allows for household storage. The garage is situated on the property in a way to be both functional for accessing as well as aesthetic in relation to the new dwelling yet to be completed. The orientation of the garage will allow for a view of Little Go Home Bay from the covered balcony located on the second level, as you see there on the site plan. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chair. If Mr. Averhoff has any additional comments to make about the application. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for that overview. Is there any member of the public that wishes to offer comment on this application? Okay, seeing none, I will bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And Member Jarvis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an impressive garage. I'm curious to know to our planners, there's a powder room, so this will be a plumbed facility, correct?
Yes, it will be.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. And I'm just curious to know, obviously, it's not for accommodation, it's for storage, as is clearly been stated to us here. Is there any accommodation within our bylaws that would allow this to have living accommodation at a future date, or would the applicant have to reapply for that?
Through the chair, there's no dwelling units of any sort being proposed through this application in particular.
I understand that, but just for the future, if he decided to convert or wanted to convert it to living accommodation, would he have to come back before us? Do we know?
Through the chair, I would have to look at our secondary dwelling unit policies.
So
My understanding is that yes, they would have to come back. When the property is not on sewer, on municipal services, and it's on septic, then the secondary dwelling units, I
Right, yeah.
believe, are not permitted within that. That's not to say again that you cannot take a look at suitable properties for that as going forward. But I think it's just the septic system is what drives this. And it's different than a property on the lake side of things, which allow for bunkies, but no kitchens, right, within them. So our secondary dwelling units are pretty much for fully serviced areas.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by Member Ribbit, seconded by Member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves minor variance application A23-22 for the construction of a detached garage and subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. That this decision applies only to the detached garage as indicated on Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. That during the construction of the detached garage, the measures outlined within the erosion and sediment control plan prepared by Consultech Engineering Solutions be implemented as indicated on Schedule B attached to and forming part of this decision. And finally, that this decision expires 3 years from the date of the decision if building permits have not been issued for the development. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The application is approved. Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next application is A 23-24 for 44 Saunders Drive. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of an addition onto the existing detached dwelling that results in an increased gross floor area of approximately 279 square meters rather, whereas 225.25 square meters is permitted, and an increased dwelling width of approximately 21 meters, whereas 16.85 meters is permitted. The two-story addition is being attached to the main floor of the existing dwelling by means of a new entryway. And the addition provides additional living space, a new master bedroom with an ensuite, and 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on the second story. A porch in the rear yard and attached deck in the front yard are also being proposed. The subject property has an irregular shape with an area of 4,509 square meters and approximately 67.4 meters of frontage onto 6 Mile Lake. The side yards are characterized with dense forest, whereas the front yard has manicured grass with pockets of exposed granite rock and mature trees scattered along the shore. There is a gradual slope towards 6 Mile Lake. The lands are developed with a detached dwelling and accessory buildings currently. The lands are designated waterfront within the district and township official plans and are zoned 6 Mile Lake residential. The property is located within deer wintering area stratum 2. Trees within the proposed footprint and potentially those immediately abutting the proposed addition will be the only trees removed. The side yard will remain dense forest with a mix of coniferous and deciduous vegetation. The shoreline contains type 2 fish habitat, which are moderately sensitive to development and are not considered critical. No development is being proposed in or surrounding the fish habitat. A site visit was conducted on July 18th, and staff are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Has there been any correspondence on this application, Madam Secretary?
No correspondence has been received.
Okay, is the applicant present and do they wish to add to the comments of the planner? And I understand the applicant. Okay, let's just make sure that she is there, if you don't mind. And could you identify yourself, sir, and your address?
Right. My name is Jerry Schaus. I'm the husband of the applicant.
Okay,
And my address is 660 Crott Street, Listowel.
thank you. Okay.
She had every intention.
Yeah, she is online, but
Oh.
she's not responding to, she's not visible either. Okay, I would just say to Mrs. Strauss that if you're online, you need to accept the little box that appears on your screen that allows you to be a panelist. Let's see if you do that. All right. Okay. You are now one of us. Did you have?
Excuse me,
some-
is she muted?
All right, so now you have to hit the mute button.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I'll give her a chance to identify herself and speak if she wants.
Okay. Could you please identify yourself, Ms. Strauss and
Schaus.
Strauss, pardon me.
Yes, good morning. I'm Pamela Schaus and I'm the owner of the 44 Saunders Drive property, which we've owned for over 30 years at this point.
Okay. And I expect then you're available for questions if there are any from the committee.
Yes,
And is it okay for your husband to add any comments?
I'm not sure.
I think you'd like to review them first. Okay, then we will wait and see if you can speak later.
Okay, sounds
there-
good.
Any member of the public that wishes to add comment to this application? Okay, seeing none, I will bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And, okay. Member Predko, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Just one very quick question, and maybe it's just a point of clarification, and I'm not sure if it's overly relevant. But in the survey, it's noted that the well is to be removed. Is this as a new well being drilled, or is it? I guess it's not a particularly important feature of the addition, but I'm just curious as to. Oh, it's the old deck and stairs to be removed, not the well. Never mind. Thank you.
I note that the area, the lot area is over 4,000 square feet. In the 6 Mile Lake area, if it was a new build, 10% would be allowed total coverage. I've got that correct. So theoretically, if they're building new, they'd be able to go 45, basically 43 or whatever the heck it is, square meters.
$450 square meters is
Yeah.
10%
Yeah.
of our property size.
Yeah. So they would be, I mean, if it was new build, they'd be allowed 450 square meters theoretically. I'm talking hypothetically here. I'm just asking. And what I'm establishing here is their request is well within that.
Through the
10%.
chair, the maximum lot coverage in the 6 Mile Lake zone is 8%, not 10%.
Not 10%, okay.
Okay.
So they're still well within that if they were proposing a new build.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from committee members? Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by member Predko, seconded by member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves minor variance application A23-24 for the construction of an addition and subject to the following conditions. That the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And that this decision applies only to the addition as indicated in Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedule that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. And that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for this development. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Okay. Thank you. Our next application is A23-27 for 60 Heath Valley Trail. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. An application for a minor variance was received by the township on May the 16th, 2023 as a result of consultation with staff. The property is comprised of 0.20 hectares or 0.5 acres with a frontage on Little Lake of 30.48 meters or 100 feet and is a whole lot on a registered plan as subdivision. At the present time, there is an existing dwelling, detached garage, and a shed on the subject lands. The owner wishes to construct a 63.36 square meter or 682 square foot deck on the existing dwelling. Relief is required for the maximum lot coverage as identified in the SR1 zone as per table 6.3 of the zoning bylaw. Staff are recommending approval of this minor variance based on the recommendations.
Thank you. Has there been any correspondence on this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Is the applicant present and do they wish to add anything to what the planner has stated? Oh, is your microphone on? Okay. There we go.
My name's Glenn Taylor. We're at 60 Heath Valley Trail. We're basically just taking two moderately useful decks and making it into one and having it big enough to put a patio table on it. The building permit was submitted in May and reviewed, and this was the sticking point, I guess, to having it go through. So look
Okay,
to the council to approve.
thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this application? No. Thank you. Seeing none, I will bring the application before the committee for any questions or concerns. And seeing no questions or concerns, I will read the application. It was moved by member Schmidt, seconded by member Rivet. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A 23-27 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 60 Heath Valley Trail to permit the construction of a new deck subject to the provisions of zoning bylaw 2014-75. The above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions: that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision, and that this decision applies only to the proposed deck on the existing dwelling as of the date of this decision as indicated on Schedule A, attached and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. And that the owner prepare and submit to the satisfaction of the township an erosion and sediment control plan prior to the issuance of a building permit for this proposed deck. The erosion and sediment control plan shall be completed and installed prior to the issuance of a building permit for the deck. And that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for the development. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is A 23-28 for 9664 Go Home Lake Shore. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. An application for a minor variance was received by the township on May 25th, 2023 as a result of a pre-application consultation. The subject property is comprised of 0.45 hectares with a frontage on Go Home Lake of 91.44 meters. At the present time, the property consists of an existing cottage, sleeping cabin, 2 sheds, a privy, and docks. The owner intends to add additional habitable space to the existing cottage structure as well as construct a new deck. Relief is required from section 4.1.8b, which is the minimum setback between accessory structures and the principal main dwelling, as well as relief from section 4.11e2, 1 and 2, which is the maximum increase in gross floor area, as well as the maximum increase in width of the existing dwelling, or as we would recognize it, the legal non-complying dwelling. The increase maximum permitted in the bylaw is 40%, and the owners are proposing 68.3%. Increase in width permitted in the bylaw is 30%, and the owners are requesting 47.9%. I also like to point out through you, Mr. Chair, that the applicant's agent and myself yesterday actually found an error in the GeoHub mapping, and where this property is identified as being located by the district is incorrect. It's actually over a lot, I believe, is it, Victoria? Yeah, it's just over. So I can bring a picture up that, okay, I've got a site plan as well. There's the site plan of the property, but I also have, sorry, I've got, yeah, we've got an overview that Victoria, she actually provided to me yesterday, which is very helpful. As you can see, she recreated the property where it is. Yeah. Yeah. So the original picture that was within my report, it's actually, the lines are very, very skewed. So this is the actual property. And I apologize for that, but I was not aware of it until the agent and myself discussed it further yesterday.
Are the lines that are on this drawing correct then?
The lines on the site plan that has been provided are correct. The lines on this aerial photograph that has been reproduced is correct. It's the GeoHub mapping as of today that if you pull it up is incorrect.
Okay. All right,
So
thank you.
I apologize for that, but we weren't aware of it.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we have any correspondence in this application?
No correspondence was received.
Okay. Is the agent or applicant present and would they wish to address the committee?
Good morning. Victoria from Flow Drawings and Designing, 3 Violet Drive, Port Severn. I am the agent acting on behalf of the property owners. Trina Peterson is behind me as well, if you have any questions.
Photos, is that what you wanted?
I know the site plan that I sent you yesterday, it was like the 3 pages. I just
Yep.
think it'll be worth.
Yep.
I do have something that I just want to quickly show you guys because I think it'll make a difference. I also wanted to know in the report, the staff report, the aerial image that is shown is actually of the neighboring cottage, which looks quite a bit larger. And honestly, if nothing else, one of the images as well in the report shows these stairs up to a big cottage up on the rock close to the water. So if nothing else, in some way, it kind of helps set a little bit of precedence of the neighboring properties. But so if you look at the screen now, if we kind of go to the first one there, I'm just going to kind of walk you through my process. So this is the site plan. This site plan was derived based on the survey. So if we go to the next one. Yeah. So then this is kind of an overlay again showing, and then this is that overlay onto the aerial. So you'll see the roofs that you can see is the much more grandiose one beside it. The one that we're working with is quite a smaller dwelling. And where our green boxes were proposed is actually that opening, which was included in many of Deb's pictures in her report. You know, with the nature of this project behind the cottage, there's a big rock slope. Which is why we have to expand to the side. Obviously, the side and the front aren't going to work. The deck that we're proposing is quite small.
So on the drawing, the lines, the property lines that are shown there, obviously must be incorrect.
So those ones are the survey overlay I've put on the image. So the GeoHub had it like way skewed over here. So
Over
it was
here.
mostly on the neighboring property.
The one that I'm seeing here, does it not show the property line going through the building?
So that's the 20 meter setback, sorry. Because if you go to the second one,
It is, yeah.
this survey was done because there had to be a side yard correction because like this was done years ago, obviously, but you can see how there's a dash line that goes forward. So that's us using this survey, these setbacks, and overlaying it onto that GeoHub for you.
Well, the important part here is that the planning department are happy with
Yes,
where
yes.
the lines
We
are.
went through it in great detail yesterday, Victoria and
Okay.
myself, so.
Well, the air photo is
Oh, yeah. Do you want to share the screen?
well. No, why don't you ask Deb what you would like to have done?
I just tried out the impact program up here.
Perfect. If you would like to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just while these guys are doing that too, I just kind of wanted to further speak to the actual variances. You know, again, so the property, it's a small dwelling. It's only like 58 square meters. So the GFA is a concern because 40% doesn't give them much to work with. The width, we can't go to the side, we can't go to the front, we can't go to the back because of the rock. So we have to go to the side. There is a really nice area to develop to the side that doesn't intrude on the space or the septic or the existing cabin, which is quite small, I will also note. And then the setback to the accessory building, that's just a little shed that's kind of up on the rock. And the existing building's actually in a bit of a U. So the setback's kind of already pre-existing, but because we're filling in that U, we have to obviously recognize it. But
Okay.
and then if there's any more questions about the property line, let me know. The owner's also here.
Well, Member Schmidt has provided us a different view here based on the impact map. So that certainly makes it clearer as to
Yeah.
where that sits on the
So the,
property.
the side property line would actually be quite close to that more lighter brown color.
Yeah.
And then the property line goes well over through that cove with the two docks. That darker brown in the cove is the boathouse, and then it comes out to the point. So it's quite skewed.
It's very skewed.
Yeah. It's almost like they're missing a lot line,
Right?
honestly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, here to
All
answer
right.
any questions.
No, that's great. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on this application? Okay, none online. Okay, seeing none, I will bring the application in before the committee for any questions or comments. And member Ribbit.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to the planner. Is the Shore Road purchased? The Shore Road allowance purchased?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it is.
Thank you. Member Jarvis.
Again, just out of curiosity, you mentioned the size of the current cottages, what? Right, and so okay. And it's with a 0.45 hectare lot. 10% of that would be, I presume, 450 square meters. No, not 450 square meters, 45 square meters.
I don't have my calculator with me, but and I don't have my phone either. The existing lot coverage. Yeah, I think it's on the zoning chart.
Well, I mean, it's a small lot, so I'm just, right?
Yeah.
But it's a small cottage, and I understand that.
Yes, and we would have addressed the lot coverage. Fine.
Sorry, Deb.
So we're at, the proposed is 6.25% and Go Home Lake has that increased to 10%.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions by committee members? Member Predko.
Thank you through your chair. Just the other minimum setback between structure and main dwelling of 2.2 meters. Which side is that on that we're looking for that relief? Is it the existing? Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you. All right. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll read the resolution. Moved by member Matthews, seconded by member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A23-28 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 9664 Go Home Lake Shore to permit the construction of an addition and deck to the existing non-complying dwelling and to recognize the distance between the principal main dwelling and an accessory structure, subject to the provisions of zoning bylaw 2014-75. The above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions. That the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. That this decision applies only to the proposed addition and deck on the existing dwelling and the setback distance between the principal main dwelling and an accessory structure as of the date of this decision is indicated in Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. And that the owner prepare and submit to the prior to the issuance of a building permit, an erosion and sediment control plan to the sole satisfaction and approval of the township, and that said approved ESC plan be installed and maintained throughout the duration of any construction on the property. And that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for the development. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is A23-29 for 708 Kings Farm Road. To the applicant, to the planner, please.
Now, thank you, Mr. Chair. A minor variance application was received by the township on May 31st, 2023, as a result of a pre-application consultation in September 2022. The purpose of the minor variance is to permit the increased gross floor area of a legal non-complying dwelling. The subject lands are comprised of 0.95 hectares and has a frontage of 117.49 meters on Little Go Home Bay. A scoped environmental impact study was prepared by Azimuth Environmental in April 2023, with the conclusion being that the proposed development is not expected to negatively impact the ecological functions of the PSW, which is on the northeast side of Kings Farm Road, as well as additional key natural heritage features within the study area. At the present time, there is a 437.9 square meter dwelling, a fire shelter, a tarp shed, a detached garage and plywood shed, a carport, a second detached shed, a second detached garage, boathouse, and raised deck. The proposed development includes an addition to the northern portion of the dwelling with a covered porch of approximately 66.8 square meters. A portion of the existing attached deck is proposed to be reconstructed to include additional decking of approximately 13.4 square meters. However, this is not subject to the application as an attached deck is excluded from gross floor area. The variance request is subject to section 4.11 of the zoning bylaw, requesting an increase in the gross floor area from the maximum of 40% to 63% to accommodate the addition. In accordance with section 4.30 of the zoning bylaw, lands within 15 meters of the high water mark on all lots within the shoreline residential zone shall be maintained in a natural state, with this area being considered the natural state shoreline area. The entire natural state shoreline area appears to be manicured grass, and although the state of the front yard is legal non-complying, staff believe it is appropriate to require the owner to restore a portion of the lands to their natural state in an effort to balance the increased lot coverage. This approach will help maintain the character of the waterfront designation by preserving the shoreline in a natural and undeveloped appearance. Staff are requiring the applicant to restore the same amount of added square meters of gross floor area to the existing dwelling, which is 67.67 square meters. At this time, staff are recommending approval of this application, and the applicant's agent is in attendance, I believe, through Zoom, in order to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. McCabe. Has there been any correspondence on this application?
One letter of support was received from Sandy and Tamara Kennedy.
Thank you. So if we have the applicant or the applicant's agent available, is there any comments or any additional information that you wish to present to the committee?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, my name's Amanda from the Jones Consulting Group, and I am the agent representing the owner. I do have a brief presentation for committee, if they would allow. I did share it with staff, if they're able to share their screen, or I can as well.
Okay.
You can go ahead, Amanda.
Share my screen? Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yes, please go ahead. And you wish to share your screen?
Yes. Let me know if this is visible for you.
Yeah, we see a screen. We see your screen on Zoom right now.
The presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So yes, hello, members of committee, and thank you so much to staff for providing that information. We represent the owner of the lands located at 708 Kings Farm Road, who has submitted a minor variance application for an expansion to a dwelling. The subject lands are outlined in red and are located on Little Go Home Bay. So the purpose of the minor variance application is to request an increased gross floor area of a legal non-complying dwelling by 63%, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum of 40% based on the size of the dwelling when the bylaw was passed in 2014. The left image shows the original dwelling outlined in green, as well as an expansion in red that occurred in 2016. The current proposed expansion is shown in the right image. According to the zoning bylaw, the percentage of the expansion is calculated against the original dwelling in the left image. So the proposed addition is located on the northern portion of the dwelling of approximately 67 square meters. Further, a portion of the existing attached deck is proposed to be reconstructed. However, this is not subject to the application. The addition will only result in a 16% increase from the dwelling today. However, a minor variance is needed based on the original size of the dwelling as shown on the previous slide. So these are some site photos that show the view of the property from the lake, as well as where the proposed addition will be located. The addition will only be at the rear of the dwelling, and there is extensive vegetation along the shoreline. Although staff are supportive of the application, we were going to respectfully request clarity on the condition of approval that Deb spoke to that requests additional plantings to revitalize the area within 15 meters of the shoreline. We are not aware if there were any comments received by the township's environmental consultant on this matter, but if not, we would respectfully request this condition be removed or reduced, as the addition is not located within 15 meters of the shoreline. No trees are proposed to be removed, and in our opinion, there is sufficient vegetation on the lands. The lands are designated waterfront in the township's official plan and zone shoreline residential 1 in the township zoning bylaw, which does permit single attached dwellings. So going through the 4 tests of a minor variance, in our opinion, the proposal will maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as this is an expansion to an existing shoreline dwelling by only 16%. There are no policies in the official plan that limit the gross floor area of a dwelling in the waterfront designation. The official plan does state that lands within 15 meters of the shoreline are to be in a natural state, but there will be no negative impacts as the expansion will be located on the rear portion of the dwelling, which is not within this natural shoreline area, and an environmental impact study was prepared in support of the application. The proposal will maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as the expansion will not result in further encroachment to the shoreline, and all other development standards of the SR1 zone will be adhered to, including lot coverage. Further, the existing vegetation on the lands provides a sufficient buffer between the dwelling and the waterfront. The variance is desirable as it will permit additional living space for the dwelling that will be consistent with the shoreline residential character of the area. The variance will not alter the existing permitted uses, and the lands will be developed as they were intended. The expansion will be located on the rear portion of the dwelling as shown in these images, which will be minimally visible from the shoreline due to the existing vegetation, which will not be impacted. In our opinion, the request is minor in nature as there are no adverse land use impacts on adjacent property owners or the broader area. The dwelling will remain consistent with the built form in the area, will not further encroach towards the shoreline, and a significant portion of the lot will remain undeveloped and vegetated. The variance will not negatively impact surrounding land uses or any natural heritage features. So thank you for your time and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for that. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address this application or add comment? Okay, seeing none present or online, I'll bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. Member Jarvis.
I just want to make sure I got my numbers right. The current building is 437.9 square meters. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, that's not including any of the accessory structures, correct?
That is correct.
And then with the addition, the resulting, I hope I've done my math right. The resulting size would be 713, just over 713 square meters. Would that be correct?
No, that is not correct.
You?
It will be approximately 504 square meters as so the addition itself is only about 67 square meters in size, which is only a 16% increase from the dwelling today. So I can bring the site plan back up, but it is quite.
That's fine. I appreciate that.
Okay.
I need that clarification. Was it 2016 when the previous variance was requested for the increase in size of the buildings? That's correct. 2016. What it was?
So through the chair, there was a previous expansion to the dwelling in 2016, and I'm not sure if staff want to speak to this, but there was no variance requested for an increase in gross floor area.
Okay,
The
then my
staff report.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. My question is relating to that though. Were there any further restrictions put on that when that permit was issued? Were they told they couldn't expend any more, as for instance? Okay. And I think you stated that there is no GFA requirement or minimum maximum in this area, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, not happy with the size, but I understand where we're going. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the committee? No, Member Franco.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I just wanted to comment on the naturalization of the shoreline. I am supportive of this. I think the direction of the township in general is for ensuring that the shorelines are naturalized to help promote native vegetation and to help with the filtration of runoff from the property towards the lake. And I think that the recommendation that they have put forward is consistent with that, and I would be supportive of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Schmidt.
Well, actually, I had the pleasure of walking the property there this morning and staying dry. I think this is an example again of, the grandfathering situation, which limits the square footage. I think correct me if I'm wrong, if this was a new build, we probably wouldn't be here. Necessarily size-wise from anyways. But my main concern that I have is that I tend to agree with the applicant's agent from the standpoint of there is no impact on the front of that property. I walked the front of the property. I saw the shoreline. It's done with rock with growth, and although there is some grass area out the front, I think that request of that amount of naturalization, considering the size of the property and the proximity of the cottage to the shore, might be a little bit excessive, in my opinion. I don't completely agree with the other member. I apologize, but I think the application is tasteful, and I think it has very little impact to the lake.
Thank you. If I could ask the agent, if you could go back to the slide that showed the view of the property from the water.
Yes. I do have this image here through the chair, and I also have another image further up. I'm not sure.
Yeah, let's see the previous image further up.
Absolutely. I've got it.
And there we are. I guess that's close enough. I like Member Schmidt, doing a site visit, looking at the shoreline, as you can see in that picture, it's pretty heavily covered with existing vegetation, and all of those are mature trees. The landscaping behind that is almost invisible. I have the same question in regard to the request for shoreline restoration. I don't see where there's an opportunity on that shoreline to do anything different than what is existing. It's heavily vegetated, well covered, mature trees. Behind it is rock. So I'm just wondering if this was some sort of an oversight that required this. And the septic location is on the other side of the building as well. It would appear to me that there's sufficient vegetation. I see Ms. McCabe.
Yeah, if I may comment, Mr. Chair, could we just turn off that screen so I can put mine up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to point out that this particular property does not own the shore road allowance. Therefore, it's not shown on this survey. Okay, I've got no proof of that. Okay, because as of right now, the survey that was submitted, I take a 15-meter buffer from that dark line, which brings it in here somewhere. So that's what mine's based on.
Well, whether the shoreline is owned or not is a matter of fact.
It's still from the high water mark. I get that, and that is the high water mark. That's what's been identified as the high water mark.
If I could, Mr. Chair. What we're talking about here is the bylaw requirement for the naturalization of the 15-meter buffer, right? Setback from the high water mark, 15 meters naturalization. Not whether or not you can see it or not, but a requirement of the bylaw that's been there for years, that remain in a naturalized state, except for about the 25%, if I get it correctly, shoreline activity area. This part of the property, part of it is in stone, but the other part of the 15 seems to be put into grass.
But
So if I may, is that and we did not take a look at this in terms of conformity with the bylaw, in terms of violation of the bylaw over a period of time, in terms of the changes to the landscape. So we're not talking about whether or not how that came about or whatever it is, but we're saying is that within the 15 meters of naturalization is what's required. We didn't require for the entire grassed area obviously to be changed, because that's not what the bylaw is requiring. We are asking for some offset, as you pointed out. And it's not about the view, it's about the bylaw, and that's the same with every property. Doesn't matter whether you can see the grassed area, it's a requirement of the bylaw.
I appreciate that, and I've got assurances from the Secretary Treasurer and Mr. Schmidt that the owner does in fact own the shore road allowance. The other thing, and I appreciate your comments, and technically I agree that is correct, but we're at the Committee of Adjustment that hopefully tries to apply some practical solutions to situations where the applicant is requiring a variance from the bylaw. And so I think there's a level of agreement here that the additional 67 square meters on the back side of the building is appropriate for development.
I think what we're getting at, sorry,
well, let me finish, please.
Sorry. Yes.
The additional, condition of the bylaw that is requiring 67 square meters to be reconstructed, I think falls in the category of not being appropriate. If you visited the property, it's already been landscaped. It's mature. The trees buffer, allow the property to look in its natural state from the shoreline. So I'm not really sure where you would find the 67 square meters to rehabilitate, other than tearing up existing landscape that's there, which I'm sure is not going to be to the benefit of the property. So
we tried to be consistent in the last number of months with yourselves. We have asked other properties which have extremely similar types of front landscaping that were not in conformity with the bylaw to provide some restoration in respects to that. If we take a look at the property, we will have to see whether or not there was a violation of the bylaw. Okay, that's what we're looking at here.
That's fine.
And that would need to be referred to, kind of thing elsewhere in terms to see that over the years whether or not they've been in conformity with the bylaw for the naturalization. It's best if we just leave it here and ask for some restoration and move forward with that, as opposed to having to refer it as a possible bylaw violation.
Well, thank you. We do appreciate your opinion on this, and as always with the Committee of Adjustment, we're trying to imply a practical solution where there is a variance in a difference of opinion in what is required, and it is certainly the opinion of at least a couple of the members of the committee that may be a little bit overdeveloped. Is there some additional comments that you'd like to make?
No, I find myself in agreement with planners on this. I think in general, we like to be up here for the natural environment, not for our created, in my mind, urban environment, which is what we see in these pictures. And so I'm very much in agreement with the recommendation from our planning department on this.
Okay, and we've got two other members that, did you have the opportunity to have a look at the property, and do you have comment on this particular?
I agree with the planning department as well on the restorative measures if possible, because every time we should be making improvements and there should be net gains. And I appreciate them bringing it forward, and I appreciate the applicant agreeing to it.
Okay. Anything to add, member Predko?
I've already stated my opinion on this.
And that being that you're
I'm in favor of the restoration of the naturalized shore.
Then, the committee of adjustment, like other committees, decisions are based on majority. And from what I can tell here, and I see member Matthews online, is there any comment that you wish to make in regard to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have not had the opportunity to visit the site, but I would support the planning department with their decision.
Okay, thank you very much. Then there's no requirement then in the modification to the recommendation of the resolution as presented.
Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt, but I see Amanda has her hand up.
Yes, apologies to the chair. I just wanted to offer some comments after David's explanation. We do respect committee's decision and also staff's comments. I just wanted to offer a point of clarity in terms of what the bylaw states is that the natural shoreline area is within 15 meters of the shoreline. That is correct that the existing dwelling on the front portion does intrude in this area, but that was previously approved by the Townships Committee in 2016. This current addition is outside of that area, and that is why that point of clarity for this condition was requested.
Your point's well taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments from the committee? If not, then I will read the resolution. Moved by member Predko, seconded by member Rivet. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variant application A23-29 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 708 Kings Farm Road to permit an increase in the gross floor area of a legal non-complying dwelling, subject to the provisions of zoning bylaw 2014-75. The above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. That this decision applies only to the proposed additions on the existing dwelling as of the date of this decision as indicated in Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decisions are not authorized. And that the owner restores a minimum of 67 square meters of land within 15 meters of the water's edge to a natural state by planting native trees and or shrubs no later than September 15, 2024, for which the location and species of native vegetation are to be identified on a landscape plan prepared by the owner and provided to the township. And that the owner prepare and submit prior to the issuance of a building permit an erosion and sediment control plan to the sole satisfaction and approval of the township, and that said ESC plan, upon approval, will be installed and maintained throughout the duration of any construction on the project. And that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision that building permits have not been issued for the development. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The application is approved and the motion is carried.
Thank you, committee members.
Our next application is A23-30 for 2 Island 1560. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a new detached dwelling that will increase the lot coverage and have a reduced front yard setback. The applicant is proposing a maximum lot coverage of 7.4%, whereas a maximum of 5% is permitted, and a front yard setback of 13.15 meters, whereas 20 meters is permitted. The existing lot coverage is currently at 5.74%, and therefore the applicant is requesting an increase of 1.61% to accommodate a larger, more functional dwelling. The existing dwelling is located 13.15 meters from the high water mark, and the applicant is proposing the same setback for the new dwelling. The proposed detached dwelling will be primarily located in the same footprint as the existing, with the expansion occurring inwards towards the center of the island. The island has an area of 7,135 square meters on Georgian Bay and is currently developed with a detached dwelling and accessory buildings. The island is characterized by a dense mix of trees, granite rock, grass, and low-lying vegetation. The island is designated waterfront within the district and township official plans and zoned shoreline residential island type 2. A scoped environmental impact assessment was prepared in support of the proposal, and the recommendations and mitigation measures outlined in the report are to be implemented as a condition of approval. A letter prepared by a coastal engineer was provided, indicating that the proposed dwelling is located outside of the limit of foreseeable shoreline hazards. A site visit was conducted on July 21st. Staff are recommending approval because the application is consistent with the PPS and meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Has there been any correspondence in this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Is the applicant present or their agent, and do they wish to add comment? Do you wish to add any comment to the planner's comment? Okay, and does your agent wish to add any okay, are we on Zoom? Okay, if your agent is online, please identify yourself and add any comments if you wish. I'm not hearing anything, so I'm wondering if you may be muted. No.
Skip that.
Just 1 second.
See.
Hi there.
Hello, good morning, committee.
Good morning. So please identify yourself and add any comments that you may wish to make.
Yes, my name is Sheena Harrington Slade. I'm a registered planner and agent for Jeff and Catherine Moran, the owners. My apologies for us not being able to attend in person today. I'm also here with Andrew Slade from A. Slade Architects.
Yeah, I'm the architect on the project as well.
And we feel that Shania's report has covered everything, so we're just here to answer questions for you. And I just wanted to make one comment that Jeff Moran did forward one letter of support to planning staff yesterday, so I'm not sure if you guys saw that.
Okay, no, we haven't, but that's fine.
Okay, I just wanted to make note of that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And Member Jarvis.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure out where this was, and I didn't realize it was actually in my own backyard. If in future, could we have a better mapping of where these places are? So if possible, we can go and see them. That it was a little awkward for me trying to figure this whole thing out. So that's just a comment, and maybe for future reference. I see that a portion, like there's a pretty good sized portion of the island that is available for building within the, was it the 20-meter setback? And yet we've got part of this proposal within 13 meters of shoreline. Why would we not require that the entire structure be within that 20-meter setback? It doesn't look like it would be a problem.
So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was actually just going to say through the chair, I think it's best that the agent explain the topography of the land to give some more context on this proposal.
Thank you, Shania. And through the chair, there is careful consideration was taken into the siting of this new cottage. So there's actually, if you look on your site plan, I'm not sure if you guys have it in front of you right now, but there is the existing cottage that is shown in yellow, and the green, and you can see the outline of the cottage, of the existing cottage, all in yellow. Green is what is the new proposed footprint. So there is also, if you look where the there's a dotted line where it shows there's like the thick dash line, and then on the other side of the cottage, yes, right where the person's highlighting there, there is actually a 6-foot rock ledge or ridge, and we've kind of nestled the proposed cottage into that area, and that's with the intention to have the least amount of impact on the site, both physically and then also visibly. So the positioning of the building envelope on the is on the existing envelope means that there's significantly less trees that we have to remove in order to build the new cottage.
Appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Okay.
And there's one other point. There's also an existing septic that is on the property, and that was recently upgraded in 2019. So we just wanted to make sure that we were maintaining the proper setbacks for that setback as well. And then also keeping those mature, beautiful, iconic trees that are on the island. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from committee members? David?
Yes, Mr. Chair. It's more of a general comment. We know we just chatted about restoration, right? And the planning department has been talking with the biosphere. Is that who we talked about? About the biosphere, Georgian Beard biosphere, and about this concept about naturalization and things like that in general, in a bigger sense of the word. So here we have new cottage, right? We have a front yard. If you took a look at the pictures, it's an island cottage, very rocky, of course. The opportunities for restoration, if you want to use that way, over the years is very limited. There's rock and very little bit of soil kind of thing going on. So we've been talking about restoration in a bigger sense of the word, such as, for example, maybe in some cases we would get rid of invasive species in terms of restoration. Then when we begin to take a look at larger cottages and things like that, they're taking up more spaces, but what the township is trying to achieve a little bit in terms of its environmental policies as a whole, and asking people that when we're building bigger, larger, closer in some cases, that what we can do to assist in this environmental restoration. So this one here, when we talk to Georgian Bay Biosphere, it's like there's not a lot of opportunity to put more trees on because there's not a lot of soil. There's not a, but maybe in the future, as we continue the discussions, hopefully with them, we'd be able to see other things such as, do you have phragmites? Do you have other invasive species? Can you do some improvements maybe to some rock barrens or something on the property? Maybe you don't like snakes, sorry, but things like that in order to continue to address our environmental concerns and our improvements to environment when we can. It's not easy in all properties or available in all properties, but we want to make sure that you know that we aren't singling out people in particular. We do take a look at them all, and when we see some the opportunity that's easier at the moment, we've been able to do it, and some of these other ones are going to hopefully over a period of time bear some fruit in terms of discussion about what rather than planting, maybe removals or other things in that regard. So that's kind of some of the wayward thinking we have kind of going on, and that's going to take time though. So thank you.
Thank you. I see member Matthews has a hand raised.
Pardon me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did actually have an opportunity to visit this site, and Member Jarvis, I'd be happy to give you a navigational course so that you can find it next time.
Don't need navigation. I just need to know where the heck it was. Thank you.
I would agree with the planner and the architect. There is quite a outcropping behind the existing cottage. They're going to try to use most of the existing foundation, and the addition that is going to be added is behind the cottage and out of sight from the view of the canoe. So this is, again, one of those ones, if you had an opportunity to get out to it, it probably would make your decision making a little bit easier, but I would fully support this application. And I'm sorry for my raspy voice, but COVID and 3 hours sleep has that effect.
Thank you, Member Matthews. I'd just like to say that I also visited the property, and like Mr. Matthews said, no problem finding it. There's a big sign from the Township of Georgian Bay in front. And I passed by Member Jarvis's I had to get there. I had to pass Member Jarvis's property to get there, and noticed that he wasn't there. So otherwise I would have taken him along. I'll keep that in mind in the future. And obviously a very suitable improvement to that property. Are there any other questions or comments from committee members? Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by Member Smith, seconded by Member Predko. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves minor variance application A23-30 for the construction of a new detached dwelling and subject to the following conditions. That the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And that this decision applies only to the detached dwelling as indicated in Schedule A, attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. That during the discussion of during the construction of the detached dwelling, that the mitigation service measures and recommendations outlined within the environmental impact assessment prepared by Azimuth Environmental Consulting, Inc., as indicated in Schedule B attached to and forming part of this decision are implemented. That this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for the development. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next application is A23-31 for 348 Mushquash River Shore. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A minor variance application was received by the township on June the 7th, 2023 as a result of a pre-application consultation, which was dated May 2023. The subject property is comprised of 0.34 hectares and has a frontage on the Musquash River of 67.06 meters. At the present time, there is an existing one-story dwelling. I will just pull this up so you can see. Dwelling with an attached deck, 2 existing sheds, a treehouse, and a shelter. One of the existing sheds, the treehouse, and the shelter are to be removed prior to any further construction. The owner intends to add additional habitable space to the existing cottage structure, as well as construct an addition to the existing deck. Relief is required from section 4.11E2, which is the maximum increase in width of a legal non-complying dwelling, and section 4.20, table 4.3, which is the maximum deck projection into the front yard. The width permitted is 30%. The owners are proposing a 58% increase in width. Projection permitted for the deck is 4 meters in the bylaw, and the owners are requesting 8.88 meters. Based on the information that staff received during the application process, we are recommending approval of this application as presented.
No correspondence was received.
Okay, Is the applicant present and do they wish to add comment? I see someone online. And please identify yourself for the record and any comments you wish.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Diana Fiore of Roulette and Associates, agent on behalf of the owner, Trish Hopkins. Thank you to Deb for the notes as outlined in the planning report. I would just like to add the reasoning behind the need for an addition to the existing dwelling is for additional living space, as the current cottage as it sits is lacking in that respect. Further, although the deck encroaches in the required 16-meter setback for deck projection, collectively with the proposed addition and expansion of the deck, the general exterior side yard setback as indicated on the site plan is still maintained. So with that, Mr. Chair, if Ms. Hopkins would like to add anything, to the application, or if anyone has any questions, we're happy to answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see Ms. Hopkins is online. Do you wish to add any comment on this application?
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to add, the reason we can't go back is because there's a big rock behind there. So really our only option is to go to the side.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public wish to add comment on this application? Okay, seeing none online or present, I'll bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And Member Predko.
Thank you, and through your chair. This cottage and this application, I think as Ms. Hopkins was just commenting, there is a large rock outcropping behind the cottage, and there is no other direction to build other than to the side as they are proposing. And the current cottage is really a very modest cottage, and I think that their application is for a modest addition as well, and I think they've done as well as they can do with the topography that they have on that property.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, then seeing none, I will read the resolution. Be it moved by Member Rivet, seconded by Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A23-31 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 348 Mushquash River Shore to permit the construction of an addition and deck to the existing non-compliant dwelling, subject to the provisions of zoning bylaw 2014-75. The above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions: that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. That this decision applies only to the proposed addition and deck on the existing dwelling as of the date of this decision as indicated in Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. And that the owner prepare and submit prior to the issuance of a building permit an erosion and sediment control plan to the sole satisfaction and approval of the township, and that said approved ESC plan be installed and maintained throughout the duration of any construction on the property. And that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for the development. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Our next application is A23-32 for 379 Haskets Drive. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The application for a minor variance was received by the township on June the 9th as a result of a pre-application consultation in September of last year. The subject property is comprised of 0.4 hectares and has a lot frontage on 6 Mile Lake of 78.94 meters. The property is within the 6 Mile Lake inland waterfront community boundary as identified in the township's official plan. At the present time, there is a 2-story wood-sided dwelling on the property. The owners would like to construct a 2-story garage with living space above it, and storage, sorry, I apologize. The living space is on the second floor and storage on the second floor as well. In order to do this, we have to look at the provisions for a sleeping cabin, and therefore they are before you this morning in regards to a request to allow for an increase. I'm sorry, I just hit the wrong button. I apologize. There we go. So they're asking for an increase in the maximum gross floor area of a sleeping cabin, which required is 56 square meters, and they are requesting 98 square meters. In order to accommodate this sleeping area in the second story of this garage, they are asking for an increase in height from 5 meters to 6.28 meters. I'd also like to point out that during staff's review of this application, it did come to light that there is an existing propane tank on the property. Well, it's not on the property. It's actually on the municipal road allowance property. And I have dealt with that with the applicant. And in order to accommodate what we wish, we asked for either an encroachment agreement or that the applicant move the actual propane tank onto their property, which they have agreed to do. Therefore, it will be off the township municipal road allowance. That does not take into effect that there's also a parking area that is on the township road allowance that staff are requesting that it be rehabilitated and that no more additional parking take place on the road allowance. Provided that the applicant take care of these two issues and, deal with this issue in regards to this with Brad, the director for Works Department, I have no issues with this application and are recommending approval.
Thank you very much. Has there been any correspondence in this application?
No correspondence was received.
Thank you. Is the applicant present and do they wish to add comment to the overview from planning?
Hi, council. My name's Natasha Parsons. I'm with Avanti
Sorry,
Engineering.
we're having difficulty hearing you. Your audio is muffled, but
Oh, okay.
if you mind, please identify yourself and your address, please.
Can you hear me at all?
We can hear you, but it is difficult to make it a sort of a muffled sound.
Okay. Sorry, when I did the test, it seemed fine.
Do you have the microphone on your laptop or have multiple ways of audio entering audio? Because that could be a cause.
It's through the camera, the microphone. I believe that's all it can do. Yeah. I believe I'll have to stick with what I have if you can hear me enough.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry
Please,
about that.
if you could speak slowly, then
Yep.
I could hear you.
Okay, I'm Natasha Parsons. I'm with Avanti Engineering and Design. I'm here on behalf of the client. If you have any questions, you can direct them towards me. Deb did a great job presenting all the material. The space is mainly needed so that the client can store stuff on the property. Right now, there is nowhere to store, so it keeps it tidy. And the height is also needed just to maintain the look of the cottage and maintain proper head height for the building.
Okay, thank you. We did hear you. Okay, so.
Okay, oh, good.
All right. Is there any member of the public that wishes to add comment to this application? Okay. I see that the applicant is online as well. Is there anything that you wish to add to the comments we've had so far?
Yeah, thank you to the committee. Just want to add, I purchased this property about 20 years ago. I've been on the lake my whole life. My grandfather actually purchased about 4 doors over in the 1950s on this property. I have 2 sons. Their families are growing. We are looking for a little bit more space for overflow. Also, I have boats and trailers that I would like to get into a garage so the neighbors don't have to look at them on my road the whole time. I would like to comment on the small, they call it a parking area that was created just as you pull in off of the road. That was created because my driveway is very narrow and I do not have a turnaround at the bottom of the driveway. So instead of on Haskett's Drive, having to stop and then back in directly into the driveway as cars are coming down, and there is a hill very close, that the cars can pull in and then they can turn and back down on my driveway down towards the cottage. So that's why that extra they call parking area had been created. Thank you again to the board.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address this application? Very well, and seeing none, I will bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. Member Jarvis, please.
Thank you for your indulgence. Just curious, we're looking at a pre-existing, a cottage is already there that we aren't even discussing here, but I'm wondering, is there, do our guidelines indicate, when we're talking about GFA as a percentage of lot size, do we include all buildings in that GFA?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the GFA, in regards, I believe what you're indicating here is strictly for the dwelling, but there is a size GFA separate for a garage. There's also a separate for a sleeping cabin.
Okay, and we don't in our OP or bylaws indicate combine them for a total GFA on the property, right? No. Okay.
No, that's based on your lot coverage percentage. Right. And I mean, that would be obviously taken into account in this particular case. That
figure, okay. Yeah. No further questions.
And just on that subject, what is the lot coverage at the moment?
I would have to look that up. Just one moment.
Right.
6.2.
But we can come back to that, Ms. McCabe, if you like. Member Rivet, did you have a question? Okay, no questions there. Member Schmidt.
I'm quite familiar with this property, with utilizing Haskett Drive on a regular basis. I'd like to echo the applicant's request with regard to that small turnaround. Where it's proximity, it's well clear of the roadway that's already been, re-engineered and re-leveled. Obviously, there was some fill possibly from when, because that was very limiting property with a rock face behind it, why that cottage is built where it is, with an extremely long, narrow lane down into that property. So I would respectfully request that, if it has to be the agreement where it's an encroachment agreement or whatever, but having him remove that, I think would be quite a hardship that's really of no penalty to the township as it stands currently now, in my humble opinion.
Okay. And Ms. McCabe, did you have the?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. When a planning application is received by a municipality, of course, we do a lot of research into the actual property itself. We look at aerial photographs, we visit the site. And when something's brought to light that is actually encroaching onto municipal property, that's when the municipality has the right to rectify the situation. Because this was brought to my attention through mapping, et cetera, of course, I have to bring it to the committee's attention. And it's also brought to the director of the Works Department's attention. And I mean, it's going to be strictly between the applicant and the director of the roads department to work on this. All I can do at this point is if I see an infraction, I have to point it out. So that was what I was doing in this particular case.
And if I may add very much slightly to that, we're not saying this is an issue. The issue was that you don't use municipal property unless you ask. Right? You don't modify it, you don't fill it in, and then it goes to everybody in that regard, right? There may be some slight different for short road allowances, but that's a little bit different. But other than that, come and ask.
Okay, that's good to note.
I want to clarify, I said, if they need to enter into an agreement, an encroachment agreement, so be it, but returning that to a natural state, I think would be overkill. That's all I was, just to clarify, so.
Yes. I had the, just in regard to that subject, and I can recall when this property had its initial application before the Committee of Adjustment, and the ingenuity that it took to build that road in there. Obviously a very cooperative neighbor that allowed him to build very close. And the ability to build a cottage behind that extremely high rock out facing it was a engineering feat. And I must comment that the applicant did a tremendous job of building that cottage in such a way that it is not an obstruction or a visual intrusion to people passing on to by on Long Lake. And a lot of that had to do with the type of construction and the choice of color and windows and things like that. So he did great. The that driveway was a challenge to build, and it is certainly a challenge to get in and out, being the fact that it is so small. And I think having an alternative place to park on the top of that ridge is a safety benefit, if nothing else, to the township and to other users of Haskett Drive. And although it's not a part of the approval request here on this application, I echo Member Schmidt's comments that I think something could be worked out with the town to provide some parking up there. And an interesting use of the property as well for the building of that garage with the second story. I think that would not be something that would have an impact on the passersby as well. So very much in favor of that. So if there are no further questions or comments, I will read the resolution. Moved by Member Jarvis and seconded by Member Predko. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A 23-32 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 379 Hasketts Drive to facilitate construction of a detached garage with a sleeping area on the second floor. The above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions: that the owner provide a property tax certificate or a correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. That this decision applies only to the proposed building as indicated in Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. That this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for the development. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you.
Our next application is A 23-33 for 654 Bayview Road. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the purpose of this application is to facilitate the expansion of the existing detached dwelling, resulting in a reduced front yard setback of 10.99 meters, whereas the existing front yard setback of 11.9 meters is permitted, and resulting in an increased gross floor area of 248.68 square meters, whereas a maximum gross floor area of 206.52 square meters is permitted. The subject property has an area of 4,130 square meters and approximately 74 meters of frontage onto 6 Mile Lake. The lot is reverse pie shaped and is located at the end of Bayview Road. The lands are mainly grass covered and relatively flat, with the exception of a 10-meter wide buffer along the shore, which has a relatively steep slope and contains a mix of natural low-lying vegetation and mature trees. The side and rear yards are heavily forested. The property is designated waterfront within the district and township official plans and is zoned 6 Mile Lake residential. The applicant is proposing to expand the sunroom on the main floor located at the front of the dwelling by 5.54 square meters and the second floor by 37.08 square meters. The proposed covered entrance at the rear of the dwelling has an area of 5.9 square meters and is not included in GFA. However, the applicant has included this area in their gross floor area calculation for their minor variance application as a precaution. The width and height of the detached dwelling are not being increased, and the expansions will not require the removal of trees. The site visit was conducted on July 18th. Staff are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, has there been correspondence on this application?
One letter of support was received with several signatures from surrounding property owners.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present and do they wish to add comment to the planner? If okay, thank you. And do we have anyone on? Okay, is there any member of the public that wishes to address this application? Seeing no one here, is there anyone online? Okay. No, no one online. With that, I will bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. Member Jarvis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just clarifying, and this is for me, I'm obviously having trouble with the wording here. We are increasing to 248 square meters. We aren't increasing by 248 square meters, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Yeah, okay. At one point, I was thinking we're looking at a pretty substantial increase. Then I was adding up the numbers and they didn't add up. So that helps me a lot. And again, in this area, hypothetically, if this were a new build, we'd be allowing what coverage of something like 10%. Would that be right?
Through the chair, if I recall correctly, the 6 Mile Lake residential maximum lot coverage percentage is 8%.
So in fact, 8%, right? And we're well within that. So, okay, thank you very much.
Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to make a comment. Very much, I was able to have a quick look at the correspondence. I think it was a great summary, I guess you'd put it, of all the multiple signatures and where they were located. So kudos to the applicant on that one.
Thank you. Any other member Schmidt, please?
Familiar with this property and a classic example of a cottage that sort of morphed over the years with the vision of the family's father. And I think this is actually going to bring the whole project into a very cohesive, beautiful spot on the lake, which it already is, but it's going to be a net improvement to the lake.
Thank you. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll read the resolution. Moved by member Matthews, seconded by member Rivet. It resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves minor variance application A23-33 for the expansion of the existing detached dwelling and subject to the following conditions. That the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. That this decision applies only to the expansion as indicated on Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear on the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not allowed. And that this decision expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for the development. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Thank you, everyone. And I have a further. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair. To member Jarvis, you had previously asked a question regarding a secondary dwelling unit in the garage that we had spoken to earlier in the morning, and I gave you incorrect information. So the property, that particular property that we looked at, is zoned RU rural. Rural properties do allow for a secondary dwelling unit. Okay, in a secondary building. This particular way, but there are very specific rules that go along with that as of right, you can call that, okay? The way this building is being built and its setbacks, I don't believe it meets the as of right rules for it to go automatically. So, so rural does allow for secondary dwellings, okay? the garage would have, with the second floor, would have been eligible if they would have built it in a different location. Okay, but now that they built it in a particular location, if they want the secondary dwelling unit, they would have to come back for a minor variance.
Thank you. Our next resolution was moved by member Schmidt, seconded by member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment does now adjourn at 12:15 a.m. until September 15 p.m. Yeah. That the Committee of Adjustment does now adjourn at 12:15 p.m. until September 15, 2023 at 10 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor,